Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, we're going to be talking about the gratitude strategy as I'm joined by entrepreneur and speaker, Lisa Ryan. Lisa built a speaking business from the ground up with the gratitude strategy. So we're going to be talking to her about what that is and everything that she's up to. So Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, it is a thrill to be here. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am born and raised in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio. I have 26 years, including a stint 7 years in the welding industry, which is why my speaking business, I really like manufacturing, construction, skilled trades. I like being around people who are passionate about things that nobody else on the planet thinks about. And I went from industrial sales to medical sales. And basically, when my medical sales position was eliminated via group conference call with 12 of us getting canned at the same time on October 12th, 2010, I decided to start my speaking business on that day. And the rest is pretty much history. I had a personal connection with gratitude from some work that I had done. And I really knew to the core of my being that that was supposed to be the message that I was bringing.
So explain to everybody what the gratitude strategy is and how you created it.
Well, it starts with a personal practice of gratitude because when you're talking about workplace culture, a lot of times it becomes a check mark. You know, managers are like, oh, what do I need to engage my employees this week? And it just becomes something to do, but they don't have a connection with it. But if you take a step back and you start with yourself, trying to find the good in ordinary life, it makes a huge difference. So my practice started with a gratitude journal with some friends. I saw the responses from that for myself, and it does rewire your brain over time. So that's why I always talk about that consistent practice, because when you have one, you're again, even in times when it's difficult, when it's challenging, when you're sad, when you're depressed, any of that, if you can find one good thing, then it helps to elevate your mood and get you out of that. So the gratitude strategy is really starting by finding the good, acknowledging it in yourself and others, and then really creating that culture of appreciation in the workplace.
Tell the listeners what you actually speak about in your speaking business. So if we called you and said, hey, Lisa, we want you to come speak this weekend, what would you talk to us about?
Yeah, I have 3 different programs, and they all have to do with workplace culture. The one that I get asked to do the most is on how to keep your top talent from becoming someone else's. So we look at things of I call them the gears of gratitude. I just wrote a LinkedIn article on LinkedIn about them. But it really starts with attitude, of having the right attitude to make the commitment to realize that, things may need to change in your business, in your life. From there, it goes to that personal practice of appreciation. And then when you're able to find the good, you're more likely to give your employees access to you, access to yourself, access to training, access to resources. So it kind of opens that up. And then it goes to the applause step where we have tangible recognition of people, letting them know that we appreciate them. From there, it goes into acts of service because people today want to be part of a mission that's bigger than they are. And then finally, we end with accountability that this is a process, this is not one and done. So generally, when I have leaders and managers and people in the C-suite, owners that are in the program, I focus on workplace culture because it starts with them. If I have more of a mixed audience, then I'm going to focus on my basically pure gratitude talk. And that one, I call it my show talk because that's my acronym. The S in show is for yourself, how it starts to change your perspective, how it rewires your brain. The H is the health benefits because there are plenty: better sleep, better, stronger immune system, less stress. It just, there's a lot of things that can help you physically. And then the O in show is your relationship with others. So these are the people outside the workplace, that a lot of times we take out our nasty moods on them. But when we have a practice of gratitude, we can at least get to neutral before we come home from a hard day at work. And then finally, the W is taking it into the workplace. And that's actually the right order because you find the good, so your brain gets rewired, you start to feel better, your relationships at home get better, and then you bring that person into the workplace. So that's the second one. And that would be if I have a mixed audience. So there's managers and individual contributors. And then my last one that I don't get as often anymore, but people will still ask for it, is the generations in the workplace because we have um, five generations in the workplace, four of which are active. And it's, realizing that people look at the world differently based on when they were born. And that program, I consider myself an equal opportunity offender when it comes to the generations, because for far too long, there was every generational program was, in short, a millennial bashing program. And for goodness sake, millennials are in their 40s now, so we have to leave these people alone. But, people see the world differently based on what they were exposed to in their life. So anything that has to do with workplace culture, positivity, inspiration, those three programs kind of work nicely into that bucket.
Okay, well, talk about the generational because things are constantly changing, and the older generations didn't really grow up with technology, but we study going forward with technology, and that kind of leaves them alienated. So how do you feel like we can all work together and continue to move forward and be innovative in situations like that?
Yeah, it's a really good question because a lot of your more tenured employees, so those that are in the baby boomer status, some of them are still afraid of technology, which, number one, you need to get over. With the pandemic, with 4 years of pandemic and the technology just becoming like stupid easy, it's almost intuitive that there's no reason to be afraid of it. But what the older generations need to realize is that employees aren't going to change for them to come into the workplace. Their company, their business, they need to change for these millennials and Gen Z that are coming into the workplace because they see the world differently. They have more access to technology. Again, they have things that, we boomers didn't even think about when we were coming up. So when you have boomers that again are known for their workaholic work ethic, we are pretty much defined by the work we do. And so boomers, if you're not familiar, it's 1946 to 1964. So the youngest of the boomers are turning 60 this year. And then Gen X, you have from 1965 to around 1980. This is a very small generation: 75 boomers to 40 million, 75 million boomers to 40 million Gen Xers. And Gen Xers were the ones that really started discovering technology. They were the digital natives. But they're also a lot of times overlooked in the workplace because they're just such a small generation. But they were the ones that also came up with work life balance. I remember an article in Time magazine where the boomers were calling Gen Xers slackers because, they wanted this work life balance thing where they wanted to go home at 5 and not consider it a half a day. So we had the millennials came in 1981 to about 1996. And this was the first generation where, college was super important. It was like a necessary because their boomer parents wanted them to have more opportunities than they did. So you have a whole generation coming into the workplace with more college loan debt than any other generation behind them. There's about 72 million um, millennials, so not as big as boomers, but they're the ones that are playing the significant role in the workplace right now because from their 30s to early 40s, they are really at the prime of their career. And they are all about the mission of the organization, about giving back, saving the planet. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And then we have Gen Z who's coming in. So Gen Z is after 1996 to about 2012. And they are actually wired completely different from millennials in that they are the largest of the generations. I still can't find the exact numbers, but everywhere that I read just says Gen Z is the largest of the generations, but they are the most diverse. With them, diversity is an expectation because they've always had it. So they're looking at your website to see, is there a diverse group of people working there? They have different family structures, they have different levels of, again, technology, expectations, and coming off 4 years of a pandemic, their expectations, along with younger millennials, for things like being able to work 100% remote, or at least being able to work part of their time remote. They see no reason why they need to go into an office every day just for being there for FaceTime. So again, organizations looking at things of how can we look at business differently these days? How can we give employees more flexibility? Who can work from home? Who can work remote? Can we change hours? Can we share shifts? Whatever it is, so that it's just looking at ways of getting away from that traditional 9 to 5 that basically the boomers and Gen Xers grew up with.
So, what do you feel like leaders can do to be able to make a good workplace culture and accommodate everybody and make everybody happy and productive?
Well, the first thing is to really find out where you're at, and that can be through an employee engagement survey. A better tool that I promote, that I talk about all the time in my programs, is the stay interview. Because a lot of times people will do exit interviews, and I think that that's okay, but I also think because it determines patterns that are going on. But I also think it's a little late. Somebody's walking out the door and you're like, hey, why are you leaving? On the other hand, if you do a stay interview, that is sitting down with that employee and asking questions. What keeps you here? What do you like about your job? And when you get those questions, now we have fodder to attract more people to your company because you've heard from your employees what they like about your company. Now, the next question is not tell me 3 things you hate about working here, because that would not be a fun conversation. But it may be, if you were me, what changes would you make? What resources do you need? How can I be a better manager? What would cause you to leave? So if you ask your employee that question, now they may say, I've been taking these classes at the local community college. And if I got a job that would help me, use those skills in this computer programming, I'd probably leave for that. It's like, now you know. So you're thinking, can I find something for that person to do and to help career path them so that I can keep them for the long term? It's also catching employees in the act of doing things well. People will ask me, are you telling me I need to thank my employees for doing their job? It's like, well, yeah, actually, I am. because they want to know that they're making a difference. They want to know that you are recognizing them. I had a gentleman come up to me after one of my programs, and it was funny. He said, "You know, Lisa, when I do something wrong, I get recognized 100% of the time. But when I do something well, it rarely gets noticed." So we really need to flip that. As managers and leaders, get to know your employees. What do they like? How can you personalize their attention? Give them access to you. Let them know how they contribute to the greater mission. There's nothing big it's these small gestures that you're making on a consistent basis that have the biggest impact for your employees.
Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.
Okay, well, it definitely sounds like you have a great program going, and tell the listeners about any upcoming projects that your company has that we need to be aware of.
Well, I just finished a research report and I'm starting on my second one. The first one is a research paper on the fact that company culture is everyone's responsibility. And it looks into the research as far as how there's three different categories that I look in that report. Number one, the employees. What is it that they want? Well, they want three main things. They want to feel safe at work, and safety is not only physical safety, but being able to share their ideas and express their opinions. They want to be acknowledged, and they want to have access to training, access to personal and professional development. And so it's taking it also upon themselves to do that, but also to realize that that's what and showing up at work, doing the things that they need to do. When it comes to leadership, the employees want to know that leaders have their back, that they support them, that they are investing in them, and that they are listening to them, that there's good, solid, transparent communication. And then finally, we look at the C suite. And it's kind of funny because the first time I mentioned C suite to an audience, a member said, "What is a C suite?" I just kind of took it for granted. But a C suite is the CEO, CFO, COO, basically anyone in that's executive suite that their title begins with a C. So I just kind of lump them into one category with the owners of the businesses as well. But they are really responsible for the vision, the values, and the strategies. So this report dives deep into that. And I've just commissioned a new report that's going to look at these gears of gratitude that we talked about. That again, starting with attitude, going to appreciation, access, applause, acts of service, and then accountability. And if anybody listening wants early access to that, I do have it pinned on my LinkedIn profile. So if you do a search, if you find me on LinkedIn, just do Lisa Ryan at Grategy. You'll see that, and that will give you a nice introduction to that research that's going to be coming out within the next couple months.
So I got to ask you, how did you come up with the name Grategy? That's a pretty cool name.
The funny thing is, I have a friend of mine, Dick Clough, He's an old advertising guy. He's been around forever and a day. Actually, looks like Albert Einstein, you know. And we've been friends for a long time. And so my company, when I first started it, was called Appreciation Strategies. So I was chief appreciation strategist at Appreciation Strategies, which was quite a mouthful. So I'm over Dick's one day and we're walking along Lake Erie, just walking and talking and trying to figure out a new name for my company. So we're mushing together all of these names, that had to do with thankfulness, appreciation, gratitude, all of that. And we did it for about 3 hours. And finally I looked at my watch. I'm like, dude, it is 5:30 on a Friday night. I got a date with my husband. I gotta go. So I left. My husband Scott and I are out to dinner, and Dick called me. And I was like, did I just not leave you an hour ago? What? And he said, it's gratitude. And I'm like, oh my God, it's gratitude. And I looked at Scott and I said, it's gratitude. And Scott's like, what are you talking about? But just like that concept of the mastermind, when two people start to brainstorm and collaborate together, the third power, this mastermind, shows up. And so while I was enjoying dinner with my husband, Dick was continuing to process. And it was kind of funny because every year for about 10 years at Christmas, around Christmas time, Dick would say, hey, I just want to let I'm giving you the rights, totally giving you the rights to use gratitude. Like, dude, it's been a registered trademark for 10 years, So I'm still very, very grateful to him because you're right. It is I don't have to do a whole lot of explaining. People say gratitude, and I'm like, gratitude strategy. Oh, and they get it.
That's pretty sweet. So other than LinkedIn, do you have a website or any other contact info where listeners can keep up with everything that you're up to?
Sure. My website is LisaRyanSpeaks.com. LISARYAN speaks, SPEAKS.com. I'm okay active on the other platforms on Facebook. I do have a very big YouTube channel, and that is under My Grategy. So if you do MYGRATEGY, I have hundreds of videos up there. There's tips videos, there's full programs. So people really want to get a taste for what I do and see some fun videos in the process. Go to My Grategy on YouTube.
We'll close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if there was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, or just any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
I think that the most important thing to get into this habit of gratitude is to try it for 30 days. I have a 30-day gratitude challenge where every day for the next 30 days, write down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. And at the end of 30 days, at that point, you can decide, do I feel any different? Have people noticed that I'm different, that I'm happier, that I'm complaining less often? And then you just continue the process. But the 30 days kind of get you into that habit. And the best way to do it also is like I did, to do it with friends, to hold each other accountable, that every day we're going to go on a Facebook messenger, we're going to send each other a text. If with somebody in our household, we're just going to share something good with each other every day. And by doing that practice, I promise you it will make a difference in every area of your life, just like it did for mine.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, LisaRyanSpeaks.com. Be sure to check her out on LinkedIn, YouTube. Keep up with everything that she's up to. If you are somebody who invites speakers out, be sure to have her out. If you have any guest or suggestion topics, cjackson102@cox.net is the place to send them. Please be sure to follow, rate, review, share the show. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. And Lisa, thank you for joining us today.
It was a ball. Thanks so much for having me.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.